All right, so we are going to take a look at determining the midpoint of a segment. So this is Unit 1, Lesson 3 for Geometry, and this begins on page 10 in your workbook. All right, so what I'm going to do here is give you a minute or two, all right, to go ahead and try the opener here. So if you would, you have your triangle here, all right, and see if you can find the middle of PR, all right, and I know this is a little hard to see, it did not copy well. So if you look in the folder on Schoology, you will see a PDF of all the documents. So if you ever get to a picture that's a little fuzzy, you can't really see things, open up that PDF and that may give you a better picture and you can kind of copy down what you need to copy down. But anyhow, so see if you can find the middle of PR, RQ, and PQ with whatever method, whatever thoughts you might have on that, and see what you can do. And then turn the video back on and we'll go through what it should be and how maybe you got there. All right, so let's look at PR. We want to find the middle of PR. So you might have just estimated, right? And said, okay, it looks like maybe somewhere in here, right? And same thing with RQ here. It looks like maybe the middle is somewhere in here. All right, and then you look at PQ and maybe you estimated right there. All right, and my estimations may or may not be very good. Maybe you estimated. Now, what we're going to talk about today is that really when we look at the midpoint between 2 points, all right? So if you look at our scene here, I can find the midpoint between 2 points in the coordinate plane, and that's really what we're doing here. Now, what we have to think about is in the coordinate plane, we have two directions, all right? We have the horizontal direction, which is in terms of x, and then we have the vertical direction, all right, in terms of y. And so if we want to find the midpoint, what we really want to do is find the middle of the x direction, the horizontal distance, and we want to find the middle of the y direction. So for example, if we look from P to R, I have a vertical change of 2. So the middle of that would be, I want to be at 1, right, if I'm in the middle here. So that would put me on this line right here. Now if we think about it horizontally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's a length of 9, all right, between P and R horizontally. So to be in the middle of that, I'd want to go like 4.5. So from here, I'd want to go up 1 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5. And you can see that that's where, all right, the middle of PR would be. Now let's look at looking at RQ here, right? If I look here, I have a vertical change of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So once again, if I'm changing vertically, if I want to find the middle of 9, I'd want to go be at 4.5. And then if I look at my horizontal shift here, my horizontal distance between R and Q, I go to the right 1, 2, 3. All right, so then to be in the middle of 3, I'd want to go to the right, all right, 1.5. So if I go to the right 1.5 and then I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, you can see that that's about where I was. All right, so that's really what midpoint is. All right, it's finding the middle of that horizontal change and the middle of the vertical change. Okay, all right, so, and like I said, this was just to get you thinking. So if you don't have those exact points, that's fine. We're going to get to it. How do you find that exactly? All right, so now, and what you're going to come to know with geometry is that we're going to have, all right, some vocabulary and notation. All right, and so what we want you to do is, all right, get to know some of these words and learn how to notate certain things mathematically. So when we think about midpoint, right, the definition of that is just the middle of a line segment. And once again, if I'm going too fast, all right, you can kind of listen to everything, pause the video, and then write it down, right? Okay, so we want the middle of a line segment. And then what I'm going to say here is that a line segment, because it's like, okay, so what's a line segment? All right, so a line segment is part of a line, and we're bounded by endpoints. And maybe we should have put segment first, so you have the idea of a segment, and then we could go to midpoint. But a segment is just part of a line. All right, bounded by endpoints, because a line technically goes on forever in both directions, so it's an infinite distance. All right, so if we want to find a midpoint, we have to have a finite distance. So when we have a segment, we typically have something that looks like this, and we typically label the endpoints, all right, with capital letters. So that would be segment AB. And then the way we notate that is we use the two letters that form the endpoints, and we put a segment over the top. And so that tells me that that is a line segment. So that tells me that it ends at A, on one side, it ends up being on the other. Okay? All right? Now, so when we have a midpoint, we have our segment here, right? And so we have A and we have B, and then we typically let the midpoint be M, all right, in the middle. And what we're saying is that if it's M, right, that this is half and this is the other half, right? We're going to be in the middle. It's half of that segment, right? Now, what this leads into is that these two parts of this line segment match. All right. So when we talk about congruency, all right, we talk about, this means that things have the same shape and the same size. And then the way we mark that, all right, is once again we have our segment, and maybe we have M here in the middle of AB, and we use little tick marks on the lines to notate that. All right. So this means that AM and MB are congruent, and we would, the symbol for that, all right, oops, leaves the wrong letter there. So AM, and then we have this congruent to MB, and then once again, those are both line segments, so we put the little bar over the top. All right, so AM is congruent to MB, and that's our way of saying, okay, that if I take this piece, it would be the exact same as MB in all ways. So think about when you see congruency, we're talking about interchangeable parts. All right, so they are exact same size, exact same shape, all right, which means that they are equal to one another in length. All right, so let's flip the page here. All right, and so, excuse me, and go to page 11 here. All right, so when we think about midpoint, all right, when we think about midpoint, the midpoint is the point that divides segment into two, all right, congruent pieces, or lengths here, all right? So either way you want to say it. All right, or lengths, all right? And you can notice here that we have, all right, our picture marked. You can see that we have our endpoints of our segment. We can see that we have the little tick marks, which means that AM is congruent to MB here. All right, so M is the midpoint of segment AB, and then once again we put that bar to denote segment. And then that means that AM, all right, is congruent to MB, like that. Okay, so once again, just kind of reinforcing some of that notation, reinforcing some of the vocabulary with you. All right, so how are we going to find the midpoint? All right. Okay, so we are going to find the average of the x-coordinates and the average of the y-coordinates. And the way we do that, and I'll make my 2 a little bit better, is we just add the coordinates and we divide by 2. We add the y-coordinates, we divide by 2. All right, because we want to find the middle. All right, so we just take those x-coordinates of our points, we add them together, divide by 2. All right, take the y-coordinates, add them together, and divide by 2. And that's all you have to do to find the midpoint. Okay, so what I want to do now is just a couple of quick examples with you to show you. Now, once again, these pictures did not copy very well. All right, so the point here is -8, -3, and the point here is -4, -3. All right, so I want to find the midpoint here. So, all right, so I want to think about, if I drew my line segment, there has to be some M here in the middle. So my midpoint formula says add the x's, divide by 2. All right, so I would do -8 plus -4, divide by 2. And then it says do the same, all right, for your y-coordinates. So -3 plus -3, divide that by 2. All right, well, -8 plus -4 is -12, and then -12 divided by 2, that would be -6. And then -3 plus -3 is -6, and that divided by 2 would give us -3 again. And that should make sense because we're on a horizontal line here, so the y-coordinate should stay the same, right? And now, think about what I just said a second ago in the opener. We want to find the middle of this. So notice if I go from -8 to -4, all right, that length is 4 units, right? And the middle of 4 would be 2. And then notice, all right, -6 is 2 units away from either endpoint. All right, so you can kind of think of it conceptually And you can also think of it with your formula right here. All right, well, let's do one more here. So let's look at problem 2. And once again, the point here is 2, 2. And the point here is 8, 6, right? And so we have our line segment here, and we want to find M, which is the midpoint. All right, so once again, if we just follow the midpoint formula, if I add my x's, 2 plus 8, and then I divide by 2, and then I add my y's, 2 plus 6, and I divide that by 2, that should give me the midpoint. So 2 plus 8 is 10, 10 divided by 2 is 5. 2 plus 6 is 8, 8 divided by 2 is 4. So my midpoint is 5, 4. All right, and that's all you have to do to find your midpoint. All right, so now, all right, let me just look on here. All right, so now what I would like you to do, obviously, is you have to finish your notes. All right, so you got 4 more problems here. All right, so once again, the points here on 3 and 4 are hard, so you might have to open up. They're here and here, I think, and so they're a little bit hard to see, and definitely the coordinates are hard to see, so you might have to open up the PDF to find those coordinates. All right, but go ahead and complete the rest of the work for this. All right, so you have 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, and then you have, all right, question 7 here. So go ahead and finish up those notes, and I will see you for the next video.